Oh boy, these things are piling up here. This week I got my Win Max 2 refresh. Initially I planned to make a video which mainly compares it with the old 6800U model. However, things have changed as the last 4 days were the worst time I ever had with a new computer. In this video I will tell you the story about my disastrous time with my new Win Max 2. I will start with the bits which should not even have happened. After that I will tell you about all the problems I had while setting up my unit. In the end I will cover the positive bits and in which area the new unit is better than its 2022 predecessor. Spoiler alert, I have switched to using the 2023 refresh as my main unit, so in the end it can't be that bad. Let's start with the really bad, which should not even have happened. First, take a look at this. Surprisingly, that was not me, but my unit arrived like that. So there was no sword, no swinging and no beating. Seems like GPD went too far with their quality control and wanted to check below the painting. Second, one of the gamepad covers also is slightly damaged and has a hole in its paint. I'm not sure if you can see that in the video. That was just cosmetics, so it does not bother me too much. However, the worst part is the keyboard. I was super unlucky with that one. My keys do not fit properly, are harder to press than the keys on the other units and squeak a bit. Also, if I check the surface, the keys are way more rough than the old keys. I'm not sure about that, but to me it feels like someone forgot to apply the last layer of transparent paint. It's hard to show that in the video. Maybe you can hear the difference if I slightly rub my fingers over the keys. This is the old one and that is the new one. For sure, you will be able to hear the squeaking. On a positive side, I talked to GPD about that matter and they offered me to send a new case so I can fix those issues. GPD is generally very helpful when it comes to such problems and most of the time they will send the parts for free. Still, those are multiple severe issues which should never have passed any sort of quality control. With that out of the way, let's come to the bad part, which cost me many hours and days and has led to some severe frustration. The first one is the AMD driver. If you have watched Fog's video or have been active on the GPD Discord, you will know that the current driver situation for the 7840U is quite lacking. I first installed the official GPD drivers. Those worked well and they do their job just fine. Still, I decided I wanted to test the official AMD drivers. That one has released a few weeks ago for the 7840U. That did not went well and I got some error messages. I spent the whole day looking for solutions to solve those errors. In the evening, I decided to reinstall Windows as I had the suspicion that I had cleaned my Windows too much. That, however, also did not fix the issue. Later, someone else on the Discord told me that he also could not install the latest AMD drivers. Currently, the AMD driver seems to be the best one anyways. So I spent one day wasting a lot of time and energy for nothing. It was really weird as I was not alone with that. Still, some people could switch between the AMD and the GPD driver all they want. Just yesterday we solved that riddle. AMD secretly updated the driver on their website. However, they kept the same version number and the same date on the installer name. So the one which was not working looked exactly the same as the malicious one. That was a very evil move and gave so many people a headache. At least I'm very relieved now that I know that it's not caused by a faulty hardware or software on my end. Let's come to the second part, and that is the SD cards. As you probably know, you can only use one of the two SD card slots of the Max 2 refresh at the same time. That is because on the old model, some people had issues with the SD cards disconnecting, which could only be solved by reducing the SD card speed to USB 2 speeds. The way GPD had solved that issue is the worst way I can think of. In the new model, the SD cards are connected via PCE instead of USB. Also, if both cards are inserted simultaneously, none of them works. That leads to two problems. The first is the obvious one, which makes me lose one SD card. I tried to overcome that, which caused the second major headache. More to that later. Let's first come to the less obvious issue, which is caused by the fact that the SD cards are connected via PCE now instead of USB. For Windows, that does not seem to matter at all. My Linux, however, now treats the SD card like an internal drive. If I want to mount that, I need to enter my password, which is super annoying. I can circumvent that by adding my main data SD card to FSTep and automatically mount it while booting. However, when I switch cards, I still need to enter my password. Now let's get back to the single SD issue. What I wanted to do is to at least use the full-sized slot as a storage for the second SD card. I should have done what Cyfray does and use one of those half-sized microSD adapters. I wanted to play smart and print a full-sized adapter. After some prototypes, it turned out that it would require way too much tinkering to get it right. Smart as I am, I thought I could just paint the contacts of a regular sized adapter and cover them. That did the trick. It worked. Voila! Until it doesn't. Later that day, or the day after, my Windows Explorer went completely crazy. It basically always froze entirely whenever I wanted to access any drive, no matter if it was an SD card or an SSD. After many trying, I reinstalled the GPD driver pack through the command line. That did not fix it. So there was only one last solution. Reinstall Windows again and get a new SSD, as probably the bwin might be corrupted. I downloaded a fresh Windows and flashed the USB stick. Just before I wanted to reinstall, my instinct told me, check that SD card. And that was it. The spring contacts inside the port rubbed off a little bit of the paint. That probably led to the card having partially contacts with the system, and that made the whole thing go crazy. Once I took out the card, my system was restored. You can't imagine what a huge relief that was, preventing me from installing Windows a third time within 4 days, just the last moment. I shall not blame GPD for my own incompetence and tinkering experience. Still, that issue would have never arisen if GPD had not handled the SD card issue in the worst way I could possibly think of. Right now, I am not sure what I will do. I might either follow Cyfray and buy one of those half-sized microSD adapters. Alternatively, I could cut the housing and use that microSD card mod I made for the Intel unit, which stores SD cards beneath the gamepad cover. I need to carry at least 2 SD cards with me, as I left the 4TB SSD in my 6800U unit. So I went from a 7TB machine to a 4TB machine. I can work around that. I just need to plan differently now and not carry 600 GOG games with me all the time. And that was what I went through during the last days. It was the worst experience I had in my life with a new computer. It cost me so much time and mental energy to get all those issues sorted out. If I had not purchased the unit with the intent to show it at the Gamescom and on this channel, I might probably have rage quit and just sent it back. Now, with all the Explorer issues and driver issues finally solved, I'm very happy that my system is stable and I can fully enjoy its benefits. With all the negative out of the way, let me tell you about the positive. As I value the dual SD capability a lot and prefer to have a USB port on the back instead of an Oculink port, I have good reasons to go back to my old unit. However, there are some very good reasons why I stick with the new unit. Mainly, there are 3 reasons. Let's start with the first one, which is the most obvious one. That is the increased efficiency. Not only is the APU more efficient, but also the system uses way less power outside of TDP. That means even if the old model and the new model both run at, for example, 15 watt TDP, the new model draws significantly less power. With better efficiency comes more maximal power. As I just recently went back into Skyrim modding and started playing Age of Wonders 4, I finally have some games which will profit from the increased power. Those 2 games were probably the main reason why I was looking forward to get a Win Max 2 refresh and hopefully soon a G1. Next, let's speak about ROM. A year ago I thought that 16 GB is plenty. Now I know that I have some applications which will benefit from 32 GB. First, that is video editing. Having more RAM available reduces the need for a swap file and speeds up video rendering as well. Second, it feels more comfortable having a bit more VRAM at hand if you use some higher quality textures on your Skyrim install. Before we end with the most important improvement, let's talk about 2 honorable mentions. First is the triggers. They have a much higher resistance compared to those on the 6800U models. The triggers are equal to those on my prototype. That makes it much less likely to press them by accident and I can gently rest my fingers on them. Second, let's shake things up once more. As you can hear, there is no shaking noise anymore, which means that the gamepad covers are sitting tight in place as they should be and not as loose as on my 6800U unit. Let's end the positives with the most important reason to prefer the new unit over the old one, and that is fan noise. That experience might vary greatly between units. Mine, however, is perfect. Much better than what my 6800U is, even with the fixes applied. Even better than my Intel unit. It is perfectly silent, there are no vibrations at all. It is such a joy to use that unit without hearing the fan all the time. Even if the fan becomes louder, the sound is a comfortable blowing sound without any vibrations or sirring or whatsoever. The unit is sitting on my desk in dock mode and I do not hear it at all. That was not the case with my old unit. Also, when I am in bed with the unit on my chest, I do not hear it in any disturbing way. With the slightest music or sound playing, I do not hear it at all. The perfectly mounted fan is the reason why I am so hesitant to apply the PTM 7950 cooling. The stock cooling is very good already and I can sustain about 45 watt without the PTM 7950. Considering that already very good cooling and the diminishing returns when increasing TDP above 30 watt makes me not want to take the slightest risk of making the situation any worse. And that were my first few days with the new Win Max 2 refresh. It were quite some troublesome days with more downs than ups, with the major issues resolved that will most likely change now, and I'll hopefully be able to fully enjoy the benefits of my new unit. On a side note, I do not have any issues with my RAM speeds. Some have reported unstable behavior if they set the RAM to 7500 MHz or to auto. For me, that is not the case and I can run the RAM at max speed without any issues occurring. So what is my verdict after all of this? I'm not sure. Just a few days ago I ranked the Max 2 refresh unit lower than even my Intel unit. It was so frustrating. Currently, as I slowly begin to feel the benefits and cleared most of the deal breaker issues, I'd say it's a solid unit. If you have a 6800U unit, especially the 32GB model, I do not see a huge need to spend another $1000 for this. If you value your dual SD cards, there is even less reason to buy a new unit. I myself would not have purchased it if it was not to show it at the Gamescom and on this channel. The Oculink is pretty useless for me as well. That might change once I get the G1, but because of comfortable reasons I might simply stick with the USB 4 connection. Still, I cannot deny how silent my Win Max 2 refresh is. This outweighs pretty much any of the issues I had with the unit. Also, the reduced total system power draw gives me more than 6 hours of N64 playtime, which the old unit did not. The refresh unit is finally within my expectations when it comes to total system power draw, which was way too high on the 6800U in my opinion. If I don't burn out on this YouTube thing entirely, expect to see some more content on the new Win Max 2 refresh. I plan to do a few performance comparisons between the Max 2 refresh and the 6800U unit with and without auto performance running. Also, if things go well, I will get a G1 in the not too distant future. Until then, see you next time. Bye bye!